The new year is already here. Most people spend hours thinking about goals, but end up with a plan that never gets executed. That's because planning often ignores how progress actually works over time. In this workshop, we are going to build a complete year-long calendar together, one that's designed to produce real results, whether you're creating, building, performing, or producing. I have prepared a ready-to-go Notion template for you that is easy to personalize that you can download in the description to this video. By the end of this workshop, you'll not only understand the psychology behind success and failure of goal setting, but will also have a structured annual plan, broken into quarters, months, weeks, and days, all in a way that's actionable and measurable. I'm Saida. By day, I've spent the last 2 years working as a product designer in tech and branding, building systems, translating ideas into products, and understanding how long-term results are actually created. By night, my heart has always been in music and creative work. My background also includes exam-based certifications in applied psychology, data analytics, accessibility, and user experience, which I apply across different industries. Over time, I started noticing the same pattern across people who build, perform, and create at high level. Talent and work start to open doors, attention creates pressure, but without the right structure, sustainable success becomes fragile. So in this episode, I'm going to show you how to plan your annual calendar using principles from psychology, neuroscience, and performance research in a way that helps you turn effort into real, lasting results. Before we start building the calendar inside of the template, let's dive deep into what science says on the reasons behind goals that did not come out as planned. Here are the two main science-backed underlying cognitive biases that are highlighted throughout research on why goals fail. First one is the planning fallacy, which is in simple words, people underestimate time and effort needed for the goal. And second one is temporal discounting. Our brains overvalue short-term reward versus long-term payoff. And I'm going to explain both of these and give examples for both of these. Let's start with the planning fallacy. There are two studies I'd like to give you as an example here. In a 1994 study, 37 psychology students were asked to estimate how long it would take to finish their senior theses. The average estimate was 33.5 days. They also estimated how long it would take if everything went as well as it possibly could, averaging 27.5 days. And if everything went as poorly as it possibly could, averaging 48.5 days. The average actual completion time was 55.5 days, with about only 30% of the students completing their theses in the amount of time that they predicted. Psychological research shows that the planning fallacy is partially also driven by differences between how people imagine the future and how they recall the past. Individuals rely heavily on their present emotional state when predicting future outcomes. This process, known as presentism in psychology, because people imagine the future while feeling calm, focused, or optimistic in the present. They systematically underestimate the time, effort, and obstacles involved in completing a task in the future. Another popular term that is often cited in psychology when it comes to understanding the planning fallacy is called self-serving bias. Self-serving bias is basically how people translate their past performance by taking credit for tasks that went well, but blaming delays on the outside influences. People can discount past evidence of what task completion should take. So let's sum up what planning fallacy means. The planning fallacy explains that people underestimate how long tasks will take and overestimate their ability to deliver on future intentions. People ignore past delays, focus on best-case scenarios, and fail to consider realistic obstacles. This leads to overly ambitious plans that don't pan out as expected. Now, let's look at the temporal discounting. Temporal discounting basically explains the nature of procrastination. To see how temporal motivation theory can be applied in an example, consider a person making a goal to complete a new project at the end of the month. This person is given two options. On a daily basis, they can either work on parts of the project or they can choose to socialize. This person enjoys socializing but needs to achieve completion of the project. Because the project launch rewards, such as for example critical acclaim, potential income, bigger audience, is weeks or months away, this person's motivation to work on it right now feels very weak. The immediate social reward feels more valuable in the moment. That's temporal discounting in action. Your brain mentally shrinks the value of the long-term payoff. As the release date set for the project gets closer, the future value feels bigger, and you start prioritizing the project over scrolling or hanging out with friends. When you can't feel the future payoff yet, your brain treats it like it's not real. So you chase immediate satisfaction instead, until the future payoff suddenly feels urgent and worth it as the deadline approaches. That's why big visions are easy to talk about and hardest to start in the early stages. So the planning fallacy and temporal discounting are the main two reasons why the plans don't come through. I would like to add a third one to here that is more relevant to the planning that people like to make in the beginning of the new year, which is called the fresh start effect. This term is coined by Heng-Chen Dai, Catherine Milkman, and Jason Rees. The fresh start effect is when people feel psychologically new after temporal landmarks, for example, New Year, birthday, Monday, new month, and so on. These moments create a mental separation between the old imperfect version of me and the new improved version of me. This type of emotional reset boosts motivation, but only temporarily. And the reason why this backfires is because the confidence spike is emotional rather than structural. Behavioral systems don't change, only the story people tell themselves does. This is exactly where most annual planning goes wrong. And now that we've covered the planning fallacy, temporal discounting, and the fresh start effect, let's see how these biases actually show up in the way most people build their calendars. First one is overestimating willpower and attention. This is the planning fallacy and fresh start effect in action. People schedule ambitious daily tasks, assuming their future focus will match the motivation they feel at the start of the year. The brain's executive functions can only sustain high focus and self-control for limited periods. So these assumptions often lead to burnout or chronic failure to follow the plan. Another one is the ignoring habits and environment. The fresh start effect gives a confidence spike, but it doesn't change behavioral systems. If your calendar conflicts with ingrained habits or doesn't account for cues in your environment, it's unlikely you'll stick to it, no matter how motivated you feel. Another one is also front-loading hard tasks without energy cycles. The planning fallacy often leads to people assume that they can tackle their hardest work at any time. But cognitive performance and creativity peak at certain times of the day. Scheduling tough tasks during low energy periods sets you up for failure before you even start. Neglecting incremental progress, that's also temporal discounting that makes the brain undervalue long-term payoff. When people set abstract, lofty goals without breaking them into daily wins, this small repeated reinforcement that drives progress is missing, making motivation fade fast. Put simply, most calendars fail because they assume motivation is constant, willpower is unlimited, and the environment doesn't matter. Now that we understand exactly why most calendars fail, it's time to build one that will lead to success. Every step we take will account for how your brain actually works rather than how you wish it would. Before we start, I'd like to note that this system works whether you're watching this in January or any other time of the year. This system is designed to be installed in your life rather than be timed, okay? So this is a 12 months execution cycle, so you start it the moment you install it. The review happens 1 year later, not in December by default. And now we are moving to the second part of this video. We are going to walk through the template. You can download it in the description to this video. As I have already mentioned, 2 notes I would like to make here. I put this template in the Notion, but you can use it in any tool you'd like. The only thing that matters is that you understand the system, so I want to make this walkthrough just so I can give you more of a visual guidance. If you don't like Notion, it's fine. You can just watch this video, pause when you need to pause, and put it in any tool you like, or you can even use just pen and notebook if that's your thing. Just do whatever works with you as long as you know that you'll be able to implement the system. And the second note that I would like to make is that this is a 12 months execution cycle system, so you can start any moment when you decide to install it. It doesn't have to be in the beginning of the year. I'm doing it in the beginning of the January 2026, but you can do it any months. Goals work as a feedback system and they're not just calendar events. So as you can see, I put a note here for you that if you scroll down to the end of this template, you're gonna see full detailed instructions that I put for you. Each step has written instructions at the end of the template. It would be really nice if you could actually read through them, because here I explain in more detail the science behind each step. So let's get started. Step 1 is the non-negotiable blocks. Step 1 is about protecting your time and energy. These are the things that can't move. Number 1 is your sleep. Here in my version, I put 8 hours of sleep. This is not really true. I don't really get 8 hours of sleep. This has been a goal of mine for a while, but I haven't really focused on it enough. And this year I've decided that I actually want to make sure that I get 8 hours of sleep every night. I can't stress this enough. Sleep is so crucial, especially for creative people, especially for people who are building their own thing, maybe building your own business or whatever it is that you're doing. Sleep is really important for your memory, for your cognitive abilities, for your performance. This is something that we should stop skipping. I know that our society normalizes not getting enough sleep, but it's actually really crucial that we do get enough sleep and we do get enough recovery. That's the only way we can deliver high performance. So I will never get tired of repeating this, and I've been doing a lot of research in regards to getting enough hours per night of sleep, so I am going to implement those systems. So if you're struggling with sleep, I advise you to go on YouTube or Google and do a research on how to improve that. Another one here that I have is stability, work, job, income, maintenance. This is my case and this is the case for a lot of people, but maybe this is not your case, so whatever it is for you, put it here. This is basically the amount of hours I have to block for my job that I have, which provides the main income for me. Apart from that, I also have my own freelance business. So for 2026, every week I'm gonna have about, on average, 30 hours a week for those two. Usually it's more than that, but this year I'm going to have less hours, which is a bit of a financial investment on my part because I'm gonna be getting paid slightly less. But this is important because I have bigger goals that I want to achieve in 2026, so I'm consciously making this choice. Weekly recovery, basically days, specifically just 1 day a week where you don't have any performance objectives. This is very important. Just the same as sleep, you need to recover. Your brain needs to recover in order to be performing at high level. I put Sunday here, put whatever day works for you. Responsibilities, basically any daily task that you have to get done in your life. I put here for myself Wednesday from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. or mornings. It depends, every week kind of changes, but usually Wednesdays tend to be the type of day where I do my laundry, whatever it is, all the things I need to get done, I try to do on Wednesdays. So see what day works for you. Of course, every week you can come back to this and change this. You can see if things change for you. You can always edit. Moving on to step 2, we have to limit our goals to 5 main goal areas or domains. I put areas, domains here. So you have to pick up to 5 goals for the year. I know that there are a lot of ambitious people. I'm very ambitious myself, but human body works in ways that we can't control, but we can work around it, okay? So it has to be from 3 to 5 main goals a year that you're trying to accomplish. So you're gonna put them here in this table. For myself, as an example, I put launch a new product because this is something I'm working on for this year. I already have my own business, but it's a service-based business. And now I would like to have a business that is actually a product, which is very different, but at the same time, I have worked for the businesses that have their own product. So I have a lot of skill and experience that now I would like to apply to my own thing. Second one here, I put audience growth, just as an example. The thing that is important for step 2 is that each of these goals needs a clear result you can measure in 12 months. If you can't measure it, it's too generic and it won't motivate your brain. So here I put for my launch new product, I put that by the end of this year, I would like to have MVP that has generated some initial ROI. So MVP, if you don't know, means minimum viable product. ROI stands for return on investment. So put it in simple words, what I would like to have by the end of this year is that I already have product that I developed, that I have already distributed. Maybe I have had some initial customer base and I have seen that there's been some return on investment. Because if I've achieved this will prove that my assumptions, my research, my market research and everything, my product fit, everything was correct. So the product is fit for the market and it could be scaled. So after I get to this point, next year, I'm gonna be able to actually see how I can scale it. So that's my measure. Whatever it is your measure, whatever it is your measure that goes with your goal, I'm just putting this here as an example. You can put it here. Second one, audience growth. Here I put it on YouTube. I would like to get to the 10K followers, IG 5K or TikTok 5 to 30K. Such a random numbers, and I put either of these two. I just was typing real fast, just thinking of examples to put in. In reality, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my time to think about for a little bit, and I'm probably gonna change this, but the first one is good. The first one is exactly what I would like. I don't know if the second one is exactly how I should be doing this, but I just wanted to give you some examples. And then I'm gonna put the rest of my goals here when I'm completing my table. Now moving on to step 3. Step 3 is that we have to assign a primary quarter to each goal. Why this matters? If you go to the full instructions here, you're gonna see, I explain it here. Our brains have limited attention, so sustained progress requires concentrated focus. Instead of distributing equal effort across all goals throughout the year, each goal is assigned a single primary quarter. Outside that quarter, the goal is maintained at a minimal level to prevent regression. This structure directly prevents the planning fallacy by reducing unrealistic parallel effort. We've already discussed what planning fallacy is. It reduces decision fatigue by narrowing active priorities. It also reduces burnout by limiting cognitive load. These are very important. So in step 3, what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna have domain number 1, which in my case is my product launch, and I'm gonna assign a quarter A quarter is basically few months of the year. So we have 12 months and we have to divide 12 months into 4 quarters. So for my first domain, I'm gonna assign the first quarter. That means that from January 2026 to March or April 2026, all I'm gonna do, my main focus is gonna be my product launch. My secondary focus is gonna be my audience growth. So my product launch is the one that is gonna get the most important parts of my attention. My deep work is gonna be mostly allocated to that. But that doesn't mean that I'm gonna abandon my other goals. I'm still gonna maintain my other goals, but I'm gonna allocate less time to those and I'm gonna allocate less deep work for those. So I'm gonna keep those at maintenance level. I hope that's clear. If you want, you can fill out this table. You don't have to. It's just important that you understand this concept. Okay, moving on to step 4. We are already halfway through this template. So step 4 is the quarterly outputs. What this means: define what you want to actually finish by the end of the quarter. So these are not intentions. For example, work on marketing. That's just an intention. Instead, I have to say what I have to have by the end of the quarter. I have to have completed market research and customer personas. So I have to understand who's my customer is going to be. I have to make sure they're real people in the real world. Maybe do some interviews with them. I don't know, try something like that. Output 2 is that I will have to have identified product line and have some initial branding. That means that already have to start having some understanding of what my product is, how it's gonna look like, maybe understand distribution. Yeah, that's what I would like. I could have put it here, but okay, you get the point. And I'm gonna do that for each quarter and for each of my goals. So moving on, step 5. Step 5 here is monthly themes. So each of the month of the year, I'm just gonna give that month a theme. January is gonna be my research. February is gonna be when I'm actually building the product, building creation. March is gonna be the release. April is gonna be when I test it. And then May is gonna be when I improve based on the testing and so on. I just put this here as examples. Feel free to change this, but each month should have some sort of a theme. And we moving on. On step 6, we have the weekly execution. I'm gonna go to my detailed explanations here. While goals are defined annually and quarterly, execution occurs at the weekly level. The week is short enough for feedback to remain relevant, yet long enough to support meaningful work. Each week, we should include 1 or 2 deep work blocks aligned with the primary quarter goal, 1 or 2 maintenance block for secondary goal, 1 administrative block, 1 recovery block. So recovery block we covered in the beginning of the template. That's one day when you're not performing, you're just recovering. You're letting your body rest and be prepared for the new cycle of work. 1 or 2 deep work blocks. So when I was doing this research, I was going through a lot of articles, I was going through a lot of peer-reviewed work and papers, and it looks like this seems to be the number that most research tends to agree on. Deep work, you can do somewhat around 2 blocks, and each block is 90 to 120 minutes. And if you would like to understand why, this is called focused attention and flow states, and you can see research by these authors if you would like to understand this better. So in step 6, in my template, I have administrative operations. I'm gonna have 1 block for that. I have secondary goal maintenance, 1 to 2 blocks, and I have primary goal deep work. If you don't understand the difference between deep work and administrative operational work, I really advise you to do some research. I'm just not gonna go dive deep into this right now because that's gonna be too long. But basically, our brains have limits, and we can't do a lot of deep work in one day or in 1 week. There is actually limited amount of time that we can allocate to that. So it's important to understand that. Moving on, step 7, our daily task design. So in step 7, all we have to do is that we have to make our daily tasks simple and repeatable. Again, they have to be time-bounded, 90 to 120 minutes. They have to be clearly defined, and they have to be repeatable. You shouldn't be trying to do a lot of things in one day. What you should be trying to do instead is to do things most days of the week. Small, consistent actions add up more than big, intense effort. Remember that. So instead of just overloading your brain in one day, just divide everything you have to do throughout the week. Make sure that you have a structure, and then make sure that you show up for yourself. Moving on, step 8. Step 8 is almost the last step, and that's the monthly review. So reviews are really important because reviews are going to give you feedback. But a lot of people don't really like reviews because we think that reviews are supposed to kind of tell us whether we succeeded or failed. But that's a wrong way of thinking, and I'm going to explain why. These are non-evaluative reviews. These are reviews that focus on information rather than judgment. Once per month, I would like for you to ask yourself, what strategy did I use for a specific goal in this month? What did I actually do? So what were the exact tasks that I've completed? What signals did I see? When I did a certain task, did I see that I was seeing some sort of, even if it's a little progress, did I see something happening? Did I see like this, felt like this was useful? So you have to really review these things. It's really important. The purpose of this review is not self-assessment, but system adjustment. The core idea you should be applying is simple. Wrong model of thinking. A goal is finish line, you either succeed or fail. Better model of thinking is a goal is a feedback generator. Its job is to give you data. Its job is to give you information. So you have to ask yourself, what has worked? What didn't? What would I keep if I repeated this? It's important for you to remember that feedback is about strategy, not personality. You didn't fail, a strategy that you used failed. Big difference here. That's really important. I put this monthly review template that you can copy paste for each month if you want, and you will just simply write down and list the things you did and what things really didn't work and how can you improve moving forward. And the last step is a bonus step. So I put this step here because I wanted to also help you understand how you should be constructing each of your goals according to research. So according to established research in goal setting theory and performance psychology, goals produce the strongest and most consistent results when they are challenging but still perceived as attainable. Multiple studies confirm that motivation peaks when success feels likely but not guaranteed. So this is very important to remember. Basically, what this means is that your goals have to be challenging, but at the same time, doable. If your goal is too easy, it's gonna be too boring for your brain. If your goals are too hard, your brain is gonna tell you to avoid it. But if your goals have moderate challenge, that's when you're gonna achieve peak performance. And here I put the question that I think you should ask yourself for each of your goals. Write down a goal. For example, if I'm writing down my goal, this is what I have to ask myself. If I succeed, will I be slightly surprised? If the answer is no, that means that the goal is too easy. If it feels impossible, that means that you will avoid the goal. So what it has to be is that you feel like you can achieve the goal, but if you would achieve this goal by the end of the year, you will actually find it surprising, slightly surprising. So that's the full walkthrough of this template. You have to start with the non-negotiables, you have to pick your goals, and then just follow this system. It doesn't have to be perfect. The point is just to get feedback and make steady progress over the year. Download the template, press pause whenever you need, and just start building your year. When a calendar is designed around how the brain actually allocates attention, effort, and reward, consistency becomes less dependent on motivation. The aim of this system is not to eliminate difficulty, but to prevent predictable cognitive errors from undermining long-term goals. With this structure in place, planning shifts from aspiration to execution.